So the big issue is the Bulldogs and Luke Beveridge and what
Yep.
you saw yesterday. You had them as a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma last week. I'm not quite sure they're as mysterious this week, having watched that game yesterday.
No. Oh, look, I don't know what the Western Bulldogs are anymore. This is you've got to update your thoughts on the Dogs. So when Bevo took over 2015 approximately, he just he picked up a team that were contested beasts. They were just bulls, and he embraced that. And they built this game where they just bashed you whenever the game stopped, and worked the ball from inside to out. And then he put his flair on the ball movement. The Brendan McCartney had left he'd left his stamp on this group with the contested possession game. Yeah? He then took them into a new phase of ball movement, and they just exploded, and they become the premiership package. But since then, you've got to update your thoughts. What are we seeing now? So you can't live in 2021 or 2020 and they've been a very good team, but right now they're not a very good team. Right now they're asset poor, which is as a collective. Individually, they'll probably have the guy that'll win the Brownlow. They'll probably have 3 All-Australians. They'll probably have 4 in the All-Australian squad. They'll have 4 of 40 in the All-Australian squad, and sit where they sit and fight tooth and nail to make the 8. So you sort of got to think, okay, and I listened to your interview then with Chris. Terrific interview. But I don't know about I think there's a little bit of a lag with Chris's own thoughts. In the subconscious, I reckon he's endorsing the coach because he likes the coach and he's seen what he has done historically, and that can happen. But live in the now. Okay? So when he says they're competitive with the top teams, they're not. They're 3-7 against top 8 teams this year. And if you look at since the bye, they've lost all 4. They've lost to Port Adelaide, Collingwood, Sydney, and GWS. That's actually not right anymore. It may have been right last year and the year before, or track back, but that's not right now. So 3-7 against top 8. And I think you've got to put comparisons up when you do these things, because if you're going to win the flag or you're going to run at the flag, it's important to be good against the best. So Brisbane are 7-2, Collingwood are 6-4, Port are 5-3. So they're well ahead of the 50-50 ledger, and they're the games that matter. It's not about beating the also-rans down the bottom and limping into somewhere between 6 and 12. You can do that by bashing up on the North Melbournes, the West Coasts, the Hawthorns when they're battling, the Gold Coast when they're battling, and you can stack. I reckon you can stack 8 wins pretty easily. So I don't give a lot of credit for the other. How many games have they won this year?
They're on 11.
So they've won 3 other games. There's. So I think you've got to live in the now. And I listened to that interview. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that they do, given what's on that list. We're talking about guys that are difficult matchups. I watched that game yesterday, and Tim Kelly ran around unopposed for 120 minutes, and he inflicted damage after damage after damage. And I thought at some point they will do something about this, because they won't want to lose this game. Quarter time, okay, you run your systems and you're encouraging your guys to play. So he's had 13 at quarter time. He's involved in 6 of their 8 scores. And you go, look, okay, now's the time to clamp. And it was a good discussion with Nick Del Santo when we were doing the game, because he said, well, who are you going to put to Tim Kelly? And I'm like, well, who does it matter? Why does it matter who we put to him? And he says, well, they don't have anyone. And I'm thinking, well, he's probably right. But you've got to put someone to the opposition's best. McGovern did as he pleased. The only reason Jeremy McGovern wasn't best on ground is because he was off the field for half the first quarter after a ridiculous act of bravery, borderline stupidity. But he was unstoppable. So there was no real plan against defeating him. This is against the bottom team on the table on your home turf. So I can understand the anger from the Dogs fans, because this isn't where they should be. They've been given leg ups with father-sons and academy selections over the last few years. So they've pretty much picked up, despite the fact they've been at the top of the table, they've picked up guys that pick 1, 2, 3, 4, around that area where we're not really entitled to. Hey, so those spoils are good. But when you get those spoils, you've got to cash in. But it's not even about finishing 8th, is it really? They're not realistically anywhere near the top 4 or 5.
No, and this is where they believe they should be. Never mind us.
Yeah.
Their own projections have them contending in the top 4 now, not waiting for another day now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fear that once you lose faith, and there's other questions. Can we talk about the peripheral stuff?
Yep.
The exiting of Rowan Smith, I think, really hurt this playing group. I think that he's a much-loved figure. Now, you've got to make these decisions as a business. I understand that, and when you've had a poor year, you can say, well, hang on, we've had a poor year, and now you're saying we can't make these moves. So it's not double Dutch. They make that move, and you just got to be careful it doesn't affect the fabric of who you are. What? Then I look at the playing group. Do they absolutely have faith in what they're doing? Because it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like it's as manic as what it was and as driven as what it was, given the star factor talent that they've got. Like Jackson McRae. What's happened to Jackson McRae? He's been plug and play for 10 years. Put him in the midfield, let him go. Now, strange things last year. Go back a little bit, like Libba not starting in at centre bounces. Like, why? Like, tell me why. Like, you put him back in and he's been probably the competition's best clearance player since. But how do you arrive at not having him in there? And then what are you doing with Bailey Smith? He's wing, he's on ball, he's half forward, he's wing, he's on ball, he's tagging. Like, there's just so much. To me, there's a lot of confusion with role. And that's a bad space to live in.
And the last element, I thought, that the coach pre-match interview, and I've done these incidentally, but you very rarely get anything worthwhile. But every now and then, you hear a trainer before a race, and you go, "Oh my God, I wish I hadn't backed this horse." That was Luke Beveridge yesterday. You give him the G up excited, and he gave you, "Oh, I feel nothing but trepidation." He went, "Oh, wow." And then the Eagles kicked 5 of the first 6 goals.
Yeah.
Like he foresaw their doom.
So he knows information we don't know. So maybe he knows that half of his group are sore or they've just got to the line. I don't know. So he's clearly got more information than us. So when he said that, I thought, oh, wow, hang on. I had to check whether they were playing the Eagles. I had to check. I think, who are they playing here? Are they playing a rampaging Brisbane or something? Anyway, I love when they give us those little snippets, so I'm never going to be grudging of what they've said, but I was shocked when he used the word trepidation. I thought this, normally coaches say, look, we're excited.
Yeah. No, that was a proper glimpse into his soul. It was a moment of rare honesty, and that's what played out. And you go, okay, so what's in behind that? He knew.
So let's play the crystal ball game for a minute.
Sit on the crystal ball game.
Who leaves next year, Jared? Who leaves? Which players? Put that in your diary.
There has to be change at the Bulldogs, or you keep getting the same result. We're into the means test. It feels to me like the biggest moment the Suns have had since they signed Gary Ablett, to be honest, at the very start. And that shall be our King's Gambit on the Monday means test for Jamison whiskey, triple distilled, twice as smooth, or one of a kind. How significant, David King, is Gold Coast's announcement with Damien Hardwick?
Oh, it's huge, Jared. It really is. And I've been a fan of this list for quite some time. It's been a little bit of time up there at the start of the year to see the next wave coming through and what the scope is on these guys. And clearly you need another 30, 40 games before that they can realise themselves. But some of them have done a lot quicker than that. Sam Flanders and Bailey Humphrey and Mac Andrew and these guys are now starting to really get themselves into frontline AFL footy and impact games. I think they win a flag in their 3rd or 4th year under Damien. I think the first 12 months will be, suck and see, find out what he's got, find out what the scope is and the ceiling is on some of the players at his disposal. Lukosius, Rowell, Anderson, Ballard, Powell, all these guys are 22, 23. They're not even in their prime yet, but they've shown enough to say they're top liners in the competition. Even Miller's only, I think, 27. So he's still got, a 5, 6, 7 year run, given the way he prepares himself. This year's draft haul is huge. They're going to get 3 absolute top liners come in at low cost. And I think with Hardwick, with his hands on the wheel, he will be able to attract some free agents, and they will become a destination club. Now, we've never really said that. We've talked about it going the other way, getting players out of there. But they will now have a system that matches the list. They've always had the list, and they've had a system that we've gone, oh, it's okay, but why aren't they playing with freedom and aggression? And I love this appointment. I feel for Stuart Dew. Okay, did a great job, tried your hardest, didn't work out. Hey, get the man in who knows what it looks like, what it smells like, what the locker room should be, how accountable everyone at the football club should be, responsibilities, roles, accountability, game day, inside the fence, outside the fence. You get a chance to sharpen the whole place. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be impossible to go to Heritage Bank Stadium and leave with the 4 points. You'll be going up there getting sunburn and coming home, Jared. That'll be your experience up there. So I'm seriously excited about it. And I think we've seen over the last few weeks, under even Stephen King, with the freedom, they've played with more pressure, they've played with more handball and more dare. That was a brilliant game on the weekend. I know they didn't get the chocolates, but Carlton are on the next level from the Suns. But, gee, they challenged them. So imagine what Damien Hardwick can do with these guys. When he stands at the front of that group, it's like listening to the man. They bring an aura with them. So I think, you know what, they made some tough calls, but that's why they're in those positions, Bob East and those guys. So full credit to them, and away we go.
Yeah, for the way that it happened, which I think in some regard was deplorable. It was said right from the outset, if the net effect is that Damien Hardwick is the next coach of Gold Coast, they will be better off on that day, and today is that day. For Hardwick, he in a way callously leaves Richmond at a moment where nobody internally expected him to. Is there any awkwardness as he bobs up before the end of August in the new job?
So how do you tell a football club you've wrung the rag dry? You've done as much as you can with that group. And it can hit you at the end of season. It can hit you at round 5. It can hit you at round 3. I think that's what he did. I have got everything out of these guys. And you know what? They're probably bloody sick of me now. I can look at them and I can't see the same look back that I've always had with these guys. They're probably tired of me, and I'm a little bit burnt out in terms of trying to get to them again and having to go next level to get to them because the old hooks have got a little bit tired. So I think personally, I think it was perfect. It's given Richmond an opportunity to have a look at life after Damien in real time. They could go any which way they wanted. You've given them an opportunity. If they want to go get Ken Hinkley, they could have got Ken Hinkley. If they want to go get Chris Scott, they could have gone after Chris Scott. They decide to go to a younger coach. Well, that's fine too. That's up to them. So I think it was done perfectly. I understand that others don't. But burnout can be a short-term thing. Burnt out can be 3 weeks.
Yeah, he was careful not to say burnt out. That got imposed on him from the outside. All he said was he couldn't think of the 1,001st way to cook the sausages.
Yeah.
He was really specific, and that's where you knew that he was going to coach again. But we knew he was going to coach again from the day he held the press conference at Richmond and the way that he pitched it. And then he progressively put the steps in place to be back in the job in August.
It would have been more than a shame to not have him coaching again. We have to get used. Well, you and I talk about this every year.
I'm a big
believer. Get used to this.
This doesn't happen, and this should happen. You should never take that team to the bottom of the ravine, but we're wedded to it in the AFL. You should move on, and once it's over, and it's over at Richmond, go to the next job and see if you can do it again. I personally think this is thrilling, and I'll be more expansive about that in the days to come. But this is what never happens. It's absolutely thrilling for the code, I think.
Simpson shouldn't have stayed.
Nope.
The extra year. Chris Scott now should get out. He shouldn't sit through the years of just total trauma to a list. Hey, go and take a club that's bumbling and fumbling around mid-table, take them to the promised land, because you're wasting your time with teams down the bottom. So I personally think this has been done brilliantly. I understand the opposing view, but Hardwick to the Suns makes a lot of sense.
We had a great conversation on Crunch Time around Dustin Martin. It's there with Luke Hodge and with Dermot Brereton. It's on the podcast. I couldn't recommend it to you highly enough. Could you see Martin with Hardwick at Gold Coast next year?
No, I can't. And I don't personally know if it's a great idea. Go and get your hands on this list and then work out a way to get a Taron Thomas someone of that ilk that's gettable. They've got that first round pick that they need to shift because they've got the academy selections. They only need points. So I think it's pick 4 or 5 at the moment. So it's a high-end pick. So they'll be able to get something back that's pretty strong for that. Do you think it would be valuable to spend, call it $1 million of your salary cap? Richmond might fund some of it, but say it's $1 million.
Call it 700.
Why would you do that? I'm sick of clubs running themselves like a PR campaign. It looked fantastic on a poster and a brochure. It's not about that. Stack the wins. Build the list to win premierships. He's not going to be there. And everyone say, but he'll be able to teach them how to do this. Will he really? Is that correct? They got Tuke Miller up there showing him how to train and how to live and the correct lifestyle. And then if you think you're short in that, there's a lot of cheaper options than that. I wouldn't be doing it. It would be hard to knock back. If he rang in and said, hey, I'm coming, it'd be hard to knock back, but he has to come on your terms. He just can't be up there for the brochures only, Gerard.
What does the future hold for Adam Simpson and West Coast?
He's an honourable man, Gerard. He said he would do what he's done, and he would front up and he would face the media and he would take the hits and he'd take the whacks during the downtime and try and help this club right itself and get back through the rebuild period. That's what he committed to. He knew this was coming. So to get a win on the weekend really doesn't change a lot, except that he can still get that from the players. Jeremy McGovern has an unbelievable impact on this playing group, game day. Now, he's been disarmed without those senior players for so long. People have forgotten what they look like in that 22. So Simpson, to me, if they sack him, that's fine. That's okay as well, because we understand that they want to get on with it and maybe they want a cheaper option, but I shouldn't say a cheaper option. They want a different option. They want a fresh voice. I don't love the idea of walking away from great coaches, and he has been a great coach, premiership coach. But if they do it, they'll do it with class. They're a quality organisation. He will be much sought after. We've always said this about Carlton. There's something about being seriously tough. It can take you a long way. And as a fan base, the absolute bottom level, the floor of what you do is it makes you proud to go and support a club that's genuinely tough. Talked about it last night. I think the greatest compliment you can give any team is that you're hard to play against. Carlton are hard to play against for the first time in a long time. It's difficult to function. If you just look at the stoppage game, so only Port Adelaide are better at getting a winning clearance on the scoreboard, and they are the hardest, if you win the clearance, to get a return on the scoreboard. So 2-1. It was 1-1 last week, so it's not quite as brilliant, Gerard, but 2-1, it means you can't function. And then you look at what they're doing in terms of contest around the ground, best in the competition for the last 6 weeks. So when the ball leaves the clearance, so they bash you at clearance, and then when it leaves clearance, they just continue to win contest. That's a great space to live in. That's where you want to be. That's coaching, outnumbering, and then your talent stepping in on occasion. So we've talked a lot about behind the ball, and the improvement to Carlton, in my opinion, has largely become because of what Wiedering's been able to do in terms of winning the ball back in intercept. So if you look at the last 6 weeks, they got 3 of the top 20 interceptors. 3. Sard's at about 16 or 17, and you got Newman and Wiedering who are equal 7th. So I think that's a tremendous asset. It just shows there's enough pressure on the opposition to give you a chance to win it back, and then you get to play. Now, I know a lot's been made of Harry in the forward line. Does it help? Does it hurt? Does it do this? Does it? If you play like that, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, who's forward of that ball. Listen to Simon Goodwin week on week. Talks about contest and defence, and we'll make it work forward of the ball. So I just think Vossi's done a terrific job, and under, in some rough seas, he's been able to be calm and calculated and challenge players, and they've responded. So now it's about performance. We step into the performance phase of the season, whether it's coach, player, have you made the right list decisions, your strength and conditioning department, can they maintain their health, can they maintain peak performance at the right time of year? So now we step into the performance phase. So they've done what they had to do to qualify. and they're going to be outside of the 4. So a lot has to work. Every component has to work perfectly. From what they do during the week to how they prepare to skill execution, to role execution, all those sorts of things. That's the phase we're stepping into now, the performance phase of the year. So it's all about winning now. It's not about process anymore. It's about performance. So can Vossi now do that with this group going forward? You would say yes. The easy answer is yes. But they're still going to have to climb over the top 4 teams to win the thing. And that is incredibly difficult to do.
I swear I don't love the drama. It loves me. Charlie Curnow, just a note on the immensity of what he was and what it does to his standing in the game.
Well, I think you elevate a performance when your team's on the rack. Yeah, that first quarter was just a disaster for Carlton.
They were shocking.
How bad were they?
Physically uncommitted. There are a couple of emblematic moments. Nick Newman's had a terrific year, but there's a moment where Fiorini just runs straight past him and you're thinking, dear God, what are they doing here? But kudos, they rectified that in the game. It's not in review on Monday when they're lamenting, God, we've still got a game to win. They rectified that in-game. I think that says a lot about their development.
So when you say they rectified it, you still need someone to do it. And that one was Charlie Curnow.
No doubt.
So in that second term where he kicks 4, I think, in the second quarter, and it's just the answer for them. And all of a sudden, they're back and rolling, and again, you just calm the seas. So there's something about those. It's a 4 or 5 goal performance you can see week to week, and you go, oh, that's good. No, but when you're 40 points down and someone kicks 4 1/4 to give you the whole second half to run them down, you elevate. I know the going behind the ball stuff, you can make a lot of that if you like. I don't think that's as big a deal as kicking 4 1/4. That was an outstanding performance. He's had an unbelievable year, and the confidence that someone like that brings your footy club when they walk in with that swagger, that the air of arrogance, a good, healthy footy arrogance.
Yep.
It suits Carlton, and that's when they're at their best. I don't know how far they can go. I really don't. But the draw just might fall for them, Jared.
It might. That's why PFI for them. I can see them in a prelim. So can I just acknowledge the role that luck plays in all of this, as well as everything else, okay?
Yeah.
So Carlton missed the 8 last year in the corresponding 2 rounds, round 22, round 23. They lose in the 35th minute to Melbourne by 5 points, and they lose at the death to the Jamie Elliott kick by 1 point. Corresponding round, they win by 4 and 4. 1 on insufficient evidence of a goal review, and 1 on Noah Anderson missing the Elliott shot. So for everything that you do, there is a fickleness in fate. And round 22 and round 23, year after year. Now, they are a profoundly better product that has allowed them to shape their fate this year. But the luck of it all still plays such a big role.
It does, but if they had lost those games, I don't think if they lose that game to Melbourne, are we talking them down?
No, but they still mightn't make the finals. This is what the point was. They were so close last year, and they are in this year with the 2 results they get. Is if a score reviewer is a bit more bolshy and goes, no, that's a goal, and if Noah Anderson hits the mark like Jamie Elliott did, then the results, you lose by 2 and 2.
Yeah, but in terms of winning premierships, it's more how you play.
I concede that, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
so
fate plays a hand.
It does. But everyone talks about finals being the success. I don't think clubs think like that. Okay, you've got to tick off making finals to win it. You've got to tick off finishing top 4 to give yourself the best chance, and top 2 to give you home finals. But they are, I'll say it again, last 6 weeks, they're stacking their profile, which is unbelievable. It's the best profile in the competition right now. They're 8th best in the comp with the footy. They're absolute best in the comp without the footy. Massive tick. They're the hardest. They're the best and hardest at clearance, number 1, and they're second best at post clearance around the ground. That is a profile that takes you a long way. Now I don't care where it has you on the ladder.
That's a profile that has PFI.
That is a profile that has PFI.
It has PFI, I'm telling you.
I just wish they'd have won one more game, Jared, and be in the 4.
The worst bit of the weekend on the way that we've built this is it was a it's a competitive field. Essendon's performance, which was just an abomination.
One word, have they improved, Gerard?
Yes, they have. They have tailed so badly.
I have a lot of conversations about Essendon, and I'm reluctant to even broach the Essendon discussion, but I'll do it. So 18 months ago, they were up at half-time in an elimination final against the Dogs. They were up at half-time of a final 18 months ago. They sacked the coach. Coach was in his 23rd game. They sacked him a year later. They can make those decisions. That's their role. So there's no issue with the board for doing that. Dogs go on and make a grand final. If you look at, and I keep coming back to how you play, which is who you are more than the wins and losses year to year. So particularly if you're outside the 8. So their profile at the end of 2022, the 2022 season, was 5, 17, 11 and 12. So with the footy, without the footy, clearances, contested possession, right? 5, 17, 11 and 12. Well, right now, their profile for this year is 4, 15, 16, 15. It is no better. It is, in fact, the same. So I look at it and I say, okay, well, let's drill a little bit deeper. Okay, what have they been like against top 8 teams? Well, they were 3-9 last year. They're 3-7 this year. Not a radical change. Scores for, scores against. If you want to go really basic, fingernail deep, they've found 3 points on offence and they've saved 6 points on defence. So that's a 9-point improvement. Is that enough? I mean, they sacked a coach. Is that enough of an improvement? And then you go to how do they actually win? So without the footy, if you can't defend, if you're not hard to play against, you're nothing in this comp. Now, you've got to build to be something. I understand that. And I think Brad is going to have a massive off-season with the building of a defensive system, a grid, and a back six that can stand up. Not look good, not have a nice counter-attack play and flow and all that sort of stuff. Without the footy, they are 15th in the competition. If you look at the last 6 weeks, so the only teams they're in front of are North Melbourne, West Coast and Hawthorn across the year. Right? Hawthorn the last 6 weeks have jumped to 9th. So they're only in front of North Melbourne and the West Coast defensively. That's not what they've signed for. That's not what they're after. So the only way that they set the game up, to me, is they're very good at moving the ball, but it's methodical. They take 100 marks a week, second most in the competition. If they take less than 86 marks, they're 0-7. So if they can't control the game, they can't compete. So I don't love the profile. Matter of fact, I hate the profile. I think you've been aware of my thoughts on without the footy and how you actually play. If you don't embrace chaos, I don't think you can win finals. So I think that this system they're playing now, they'll go well away from in the next couple of years. So I wonder why you'd play that system this year. What's the point of this system? It's a false economy. So I don't want to go too deep into it, but that has to change. That without the footy profile at Essendon has been this way for a decade. And until they embrace the other side of the coin, nothing will change.
So there is one other number I think that you have to take into account, as they have gone from 7 wins to 11 wins. I think that's a significant number.
Why is it a significant number?
Oh, come on. It's a win-loss industry.
Yeah, but it's so okay. What's changed?
No, I'm not. I didn't dispute any of your numbers.
Your draw can do that.
I think you have to acknowledge that they have, and they'll go from 15th to whatever. Is adding 4 wins is a significant outcome, I think. Now, what's in behind the outcome, I'm not arguing the toss of the coin.
Yeah,
but to be 4 wins better off, you can't walk past that.
The draw has a lot to do with that. Your fixture has so much to do with that. So much to do. I mean, they played the Kangaroos did they play the Kangaroos in the West Coast twice?
They did. And
how many wins is that?
Their true form.
How many wins is that?
Well, that's 4.
Yeah.
But they would have. You have to do the like-for-like comparison on who the also-rans were last year. But their form has tailed so badly, and it was to be read at face value, wasn't it? They just beat North Melbourne and West Coast, the 2 worst teams in it, and then got annihilated as soon as they ran into a.
What do you think of their
team.
list?
No, I think they're at the start of building something. I think they're better off at the end of this year than they were at the end of last year. That'll be my view.
Well, I want to see it. Yep. I'm not evaluating emotions or people or anything like that. I'm just looking at your profile against the rest of the competition, and they are miles off competing defensively.
For the first time, Craig McRae is in the pressure index. First time in his tenure as Collingwood coach. As to what do you believe this is, having lost 3 out of 4? He used the phrase biding time in his press conference on Friday night. You've been pretty accurate with your diagnosis of Collingwood. Bring us up to speed.
Oh, their profile right now is not that of a premier. Let's just leave it at that. But, they've been the best in the competition for the first 10 weeks. They stack the wins. It's exactly what we talk about consistently. Get your wins early and then you can tinker through the middle part of the season, get yourself going in the back half or the back 6 weeks. They haven't got themselves going in the back 6 weeks. So there's grey area as to where it all sits right now. I went back and watched that game. I'll probably watched that game 3 times.
Yep.
Because I'm fascinated by that game. I'm fascinated by Collingwood and their want to outnumber where the ball goes, particularly when it's in that midsection of the ground. Now they're getting 47 inside 50s a week the last 6 weeks, which is bottom 3 in the comp. So how do you get your inside 50s? One major way of getting your inside 50s are the in-out repeats. Opposition knock it out, you win it back, drive it back in. In, out, in, out, in, out. And then, we had that whole game for 5 years where congestion killed us. So to stack, they're the worst in the competition or second worst in the competition in the last 6 weeks at getting those repeat inside 50 opportunities. There's a problem there with their game. So I thought I'm going to go have a look at it. The errors they are making are so small. I showed it on First Crack last night. It's a lapse in concentration. It's not absolutely dotting an I and crossing a T. And then when they do outnumber, it's almost like no one says, I'll go and win the ball. They all just wait for someone else to win the ball. So 5 guys versus 1 or 5 versus 2 or 4 versus 2, and they're just waiting for someone to win the ball. So is that flicking a switch? I don't know what flicking a switch is, but if that's flicking a switch, I can see that changing. Now, we challenged Scotty Pendlebury to become Scotty Pendlebury again. On the weekend, he has 30-odd touches. He has 13 contested possessions, which he hadn't had for a little while, 12 clearances, which he hadn't had for a little while, 7 centre bounce clearances, which he hasn't had for a long time. So he can do that because he's a senior core player, 350 games of footy, he knows what he's doing. So I wonder whether De Goey can now do that. Instead of being a handball receiver, get your hands dirty again. Get your knees dirty. Get in and win that ball rather than wait for someone to get it to you. Nick Dacos does that, but he's absent at the moment. So the 3 prime movers, those 3 guys, Dacos, De Goey, Pendlebury, are the ball winners. Crisp, he's been running over the footy all year. Get your hands dirty, get your knees dirty again. As soon as they go back to that, Taylor Adams can do it, but it's fluctuated. As soon as they say, I'm going to win us this ball, it'll shift for them. The gap's not huge, Jared. But on all the profiling stuff, because you don't win that ball, the opposition have all the luxuries and take the ball off you and score. And because they've invested all their outnumbering at the position where the ball is, at the source, they're vulnerable everywhere else. So it is a fairly big shift that needs to happen, but it's all hunger. It's all mindset.
And the emotional trigger of a qualifying final will give them that. So I think they are in the most awkward phase. And I might be totally wrong about this, but they are biding time. They're biding time in August, waiting for the real stuff. They've seen behind the curtain. Now, will the emotional trigger of a qualifying final bring all of that back? That's the question that's unanswerable at the moment. That's actually the part of the question that Craig McRae can't answer. So he keeps saying, I don't know how to answer that question, but he does. He knows exactly how to answer it. What he doesn't know is will it return when the prize is a place in an elimination final?
Yeah, and
not
none
just
of us,
round 23.
None of us can answer that.
That's the unanswerable until it plays out in front of us.
I think they need some old school stuff. It'd be mouth guards at training for a little while. Let's get that anger back, that hunger back. You know, we talked about Melbourne's pre-season. Every session was life and death. Every spilt ball, good luck. And they had clash after clash, and it was almost where you had to look away at times, hoping that both players would get up. They nearly need a couple of those sessions just to get that edge back. They've lost their edge. I back Craig McRae to get that, to have that return, to find a way to motivate this group, and then the faithful get involved. There is no roar like a Collingwood roar, Jared. So if they get momentum in a final, it will go a long way to driving this group. So there are a few intangibles with Collingwood that you just can't bank on or you can't put a line through.
They got that right for Loop Logics. Loop Logics, the Swiss Army knife of construction management. 7:50, 7:40. What was it? Burke Street.
7:40 Burke.
Chris Fagan and his Brisbane Lions' most important home and away game of the era.
Yeah. And credit to them, they were terrific. They were outstanding. They had to come and prove a point. They had a banged up Collingwood, vulnerable everywhere, down on talent, down on form. Just come and win it. And then next time we see you in Melbourne, September 30. That was the aim. Huge tick. Lockie Neal back to his clearance best, which we hadn't seen for a little while. And we started to question people say, "Oh, you're hard on this guy, you're hard." No, we're just talking about performance. It's a performance industry. It's always put up or shut up. That's just how it is. I was rapt to see Zorko get a fair bit of footy. He's been one that I've just been watching. What's the best of Dane Zorko? You know, how's he tracking? So he did really well. Charlie Cameron's always a threat. Their big boppers forward of centre kicked beautifully, particularly a goal. Eric Hipwood, gee whiz, did he have the boots on? No, they're a very, very good football team, Jared. There's no doubt about that. Logic says they go tick, tick, tick at home, the next 3 opportunities, and we see them in a grand final. Now, I don't know if it's that simple, but that's the position they've put themselves in.
And Kilda and Ross Lyon are qualified for the finals.
Well, Ross, we talk a lot about Saints fans take this to heart when you say it. I don't think they're the most talented team, but they get absolutely everything out of themselves. Now, whether that's the individual player motivating, whether that's the coaching department setting the game up to suit this group, whether that's just the insanity of Ross and his coaching group to drive them to become all role players. I was thrilled just watching this game with how hard they were to move the ball against, how hard they were to play against in terms of their forward half harassment, their want to tackle. That they are a driven team, and they're going to be tough to play in a final. Now, I don't know whether they're good enough, and I don't know how far they go. I don't really know, but I'll keep saying it, and people think I'm belittling St Kilda. I'm not. I'm just saying I don't think you're as good as some of the other teams, but by God, I love the way you play. I love the way you fight the fight and beat teams that are better than you. So there's some real commendation in that. But it doesn't mean it's no slight on them. They'll get better over the next couple of years with more talent walking in the door. They will cut savagely at the end of this year in terms of their list. They'll make some tough calls. But you know that if you walk into St Kilda, this is how you have to play. That's a great starting point. They haven't had that for some time. So well done for qualifying and finishing strong and charging to the finals, really. They're not limping to the line at all.
And then the best bit is I thought we would be revelling with Tiger fans, 60,000 of you with Trent Cotchin and Jack Revolt, but that's just not the morning that it panned out to be. But that was a beautiful farewell, and the lap at the end, what was captured on Fox, and then what was still going when the next game started, which was then posted on social media, that's as good as it gets in terms of seeing off the heroes.
Great clubs. They treat their superstar talent and guys who have been terrific servants for them, they treat them really well on the way out. You get one chance. You can't stuff it up, and they did a great job with Trent and Jack, and all the Richmond faithfuls, they just say thanks. Thanks for the journey. Thanks for the ride. They've had probably 5 magnets that they haven't had to worry about in their 22 for 15 years. Edwards, Martin, Cotchin, Rewalt. Who else is there? I know I'm missing some names, but they've had guys that they've really only had to select half a dozen players around the edges, Jared, for years. So it's a different shift, and we look forward to seeing the next opportunity or the next wave at the Tigers.
The only thing that was missed was they all missed their shots at goal.
Yeah,
Revolt, Cotchin and Zeeble as well. And I know in the means test we won't get to the Jack Zeeble, the way he was assaulted in the aftermath. That's just a shocking story. I've been listening to Tom Morris with the details of that. That your faith in mankind wavers badly in those moments.
They've got to find those guys and do what they have to do from a legal point of view. But the other thing that angers me is the vision that coming out of these faceless cowards that want to abuse players when they come off the field, grandstanding in a manner that's totally unacceptable with the Western Bulldogs on Sunday. Those guys, if you are Western Bulldogs supporters, just put your face to it. Put your name to it. Let us know who you are. If you want to talk like that and you want to carry on like that, have the balls to say, yeah, here I am, here's my name, and don't go to the footy anymore. The clubs don't need these sort of fans.